Our top story tonight comes from Parliament, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi broke his silence on Manipur. Speaking in the Rajya Sabha on the President's address, the Prime Minister said that Manipur is returning to normalcy. He said the opposition needs to work together with the government to restore peace in Manipur. The opposition walked out and was not in the House when the Prime Minister spoke on Manipur. They had walked out after the chair refused Leader of Opposition Mallikarjun Kharge the permission to speak during Prime Minister Modi's speech. Listen in first to what the Prime Minister said and how the opposition responded on the crucial question of Manipur.
मणिपुर की स्थिति सामान्य करने के लिए सरकार निरंतर प्रयासरत है। वहां जो कुछ भी घटनाएं घटी, 11,000 से ज्यादा एफआईआर की गई है। मणिपुर छोटा सा राज्य है, 11,000 एफआईआर की गई है। 500 से ज्यादा लोग अरेस्ट हुए हैं। आदरणीय सभापति जी, इस बात को भी हमें स्वीकार करना होगा कि मणिपुर में लगातार हिंसा की घटनाएं कम होती जा रही है। इसका मतलब शांति का आशा रखना, शांति पे भरोसा करना संभव हो रहा है। आज मणिपुर के अधिकांश हिस्सों में आम दिनों की तरह स्कूल चल रहे हैं, कॉलेज चल रहे हैं, दफ्तर और दूसरे संस्थान खुले रहे हैं। बीते समय में पहले की सरकारों में ऐसा नहीं हुआ है। गृह मंत्री स्वयं कई दिनों तक वहां रहे हैं, गृह राज्य मंत्री हफ्तों तक वहां रहे हैं और बार बार वहां जाकर के संबंधित लोगों को जोड़ने का प्रयास करते रहे हैं। आदरणीय सभापति जी, पॉलिटिकल लीडरशिप तो है ही, लेकिन सरकार के सभी वरिष्ठ अधिकारी जिसका इन काम से संबंध है, वे लगातार वहां फिजिकल जाते हैं, लगातार वहां संपर्क में रहते हैं और समस्या के समाधान के लिए हर प्रकार से प्रयासों को बल दिया जा रहा है। हम सभी को राजनीति से ऊपर उठ करके वहां की स्थिति को सामान्य बनाने में सहयोग करना चाहिए। ये हम सबका कर्तव्य है। आदरणीय सभापति जी, जो भी तत्व मणिपुर की आग में घी डालने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, मैं उनसे आगाह करता हूं कि ये हरकतें बंद करें। एक समय आएगा मणिपुर ही उनको रिजेक्ट करने वाला है, ऐसे लोगों को।
हम सबने इसलिए वॉकआउट किया कि जो प्राइम मिनिस्टर अपना राष्ट्रपति अभिभाषण पर जो भाषण दे रहे थे, उन्होंने कुछ गलत बातें सदन को बताई। तो हमारे को बोलते हैं कि हम संविधान विरोधी है। अरे खुद विरोधी है, जन्मतः ही विरोधी है, शुरू से विरोधी है। संविधान सभा के समक्ष संविधान के प्रारूप के अबाध रूप से प्रस्तुत किए जाने के समस्त श्रेय पर कांग्रेस पार्टी का हक बनता है। ये बात मैं कहने वाला था और मेरी बात सुन रहे नहीं। मैं मिनटों से हाथ उठा रहा हूं। हमारे सभी पार्टी, इंडिया गठबंधन पार्टी पूरी उठ के डिमांड कर रही थी, मांग रही थी। हम ध्यान खींच रहे थे चेयरमैन साहब, ना हमको वो मौका नहीं मिला। मैं फिर प्रधानमंत्री से खुद रिक्वेस्ट किया, 1 बार 2 बार 3 बार, लेकिन उन्होंने भी उसको नकार दिया। और इसलिए मैं कंडम करता हूं, हम सभी लोग कंडम करते हैं और कंडम करके हम वॉकआउट किए।
So walkout in Parliament over the Prime Minister's speech, Manipur at the center of it. To get a response, I'm joined by the Congress MP of Inner Manipur. He is one of the two MPs of Manipur. Dr. Bimal Oikojam joins me. First time MP. Appreciate your joining us, Dr. Oikojam. The Prime Minister said today that the violence in Manipur is continuously declining and constant efforts are on to bring peace in Manipur. You had called on the Prime Minister to break his silence. He's done so. Are you now willing to give him the benefit of doubt when he says Manipur is coming back to normalcy?
Well, at one level, he has broken the silence because of the pressure put on him by Rahulji and our honorable MP like Moya Moitraji, and perhaps a person people may not have expected an MP from Manipur to speak up. And I think that kind of a pressure must have forced him to break his silence. But the content of what he said on the floor of the House in Rajya Sabha today is very disappointing. In fact, it normalizes the violence. I wish that the Prime Minister was a little more sincere to address the issues. Instances like what he says that there are schools open, colleges are open, but he forgets that Meiteis can't go and attend classes in Churachandpur Medical College, so is the Kuki students can't come and join classes in Manipur University and so on. And there are lots and lots of people languishing in a terrible condition in relief camps. And these are daily violence. These people are suffering from everyday forms of violence, insult, humiliation in the camp. There's an uncanny similarity between their experience and what have happened in those people who have been uprooted during the colossal violence of partition in 1947. And to say that things are getting back to normal, despite all this thing, incidentally, this couple of days, the firing has been going on again. And nobody can go to their villages back. And how can you call this as normalcy has been gradually returning, violence has been reduced gradually and so on.
I'll play some of those.
Completely in contradiction to the ground reality.
I'll play some of those visuals that we've got from Manipur on the ground in a moment, Dr. Oikojam. But are you telling me today that the Prime Minister is living in denial? And what would have convinced you otherwise that the Prime Minister is taking the country into confidence on Manipur?
I think he should speak the truth. The truth is that there are 60,000 people still languishing in relief camps, and they are suffering from everyday forms of violence. The humiliations, something that I have experienced during my research work on partition of 1947. Brother-in-law, father-in-law back in the one small place, taking bath in the open and not proper food, children asking for biscuit and the parents don't have money to give them, and people are standing in the roadside trying to sell things. Do you think that these are not violence? This is everyday forms of violence. And people can't go back to their villages.
Are you likening today, Professor Oikojam, the things which are happening in Manipur to the partition of 1947?
Yeah.
You are.
Absolutely. I have said this. In the history of India, you have never seen people being shifted out from one area by the state in the name of, within quote, safety. And once these people have been shifted out, those places have been bulldozed and flattened out. I have given an example of what happened in Churachandpur, Khumujambalekai, where the Meiteis were been shifted out. Then those areas have been flattened out. And some people even try to make market out of that, right under the nose of the administration and security forces. And similarly, you have these houses being vandalized and people trying to usurp these houses in the valley and so on. Do you think this is not partition? If it is not partition, what is it?
No, but what would convince you then that the Prime Minister is sincere? What would it take to convince you that the Prime Minister is actually sincere about Manipur?
I mean, he should come much more concretely rather than playing politics of, 10 times president rules, as if BJP has never indulged in imposing president rules. And as such, president rules is a constitutional provision. But what this government of India has done to Manipur is beyond constitutions. Take, for example, the cabinet minister in the government of Manipur says that the security advisor was appointed by the union government, and yet the order of his appointment was issued by the governor, that meaning thereby it is a decision of the cabinet. So there has been a de facto subversion of the state autonomy and state government by the central government. It is not acting according to the constitutional provisions provided for president's rule. There's a de facto exercise of power over the state government. Unfortunately, we have a willing and obedient, if subservient is too strong a word, government here in Imphal.
But what do you expect? I don't know, Professor, what do you expect from the Prime Minister? What would you have convinced you as the MP from Manipur that the Prime Minister is serious about providing a healing touch to Manipur as he claimed he is?
I wish that, Rajiv, I just wanted to remind you something, that this silence has been a huge insult and humiliation for the suffering people of the state. And I remember in a lecture delivered in an institute in Delhi, our former Home Secretary G.K. Pillai once said that people of Manipur have been humiliated. And the way forward for Manipur is for either the president or the prime ministers to apologize to the people for what the government of India has done to the people of the state. And I think this humiliation that we suffer this time is far more serious than the kind of humiliation Mr. G.K. Pillai talked about. And I therefore expect, if you have the Raj Dharma and Raj Bhakti in the heart of our prime minister, he should apologize. And I said people of Manipur would be magnanimous. I believe that our people are large-hearted people. We will accept. There will be no bitterness, and then we will look forward to working together with the Prime Minister to restore normalcy. I think that kind of honesty should come. And second, there must be certain concrete action on the ground. We want, this the kind of things that the suspension operation, we don't know whether this has been extended after the 29th of February. The government of Manipur is silent. The government of India is silent. It has not been extended. Such kind of impropriety of constitutional kind has been indulged in. And this needs to come out and crack down on these armed groups who are firing at civilians and so on. Remember, Rajdev, Manipur is one of the most militarized states in this country. It is one of those very few states in this country in which we have more armed policemen than the civil police. And each and every square centimeter of the state of Manipur is covered by a central security forces, either the central police organization or the paramilitary or the regular army. And despite this, 60,000 people have lost their homes and more than 200 people have been slaughtered. How does this happen despite the presence of these so much security forces in the state of Manipur over the last 1 year or so?
But Professor Oikojam, if I may look to the future, you're telling me what you believe has happened over the last 13 months, and our thoughts are with the people of Manipur. But the Prime Minister today also appealed to the opposition to come and work together with him. He said, don't politicize the issue, saying you're playing with fire. Are you willing to reach out if the Prime Minister tomorrow says, Dr. Oikojam, you're the MP from there, let's work together?
No, I think this is called, in psychoanalysis, it is called projection. It is exactly what they are doing, and they're projecting on the Congress. They've been playing politics over the life of the people of the state, and as well as misleading the people in the rest of the country as the world.
No, but would you work with each other or not? My question is, are you willing to work together to get Manipur back on its feet?
No, I would be happily if the Prime Minister comes out openly, and as I said, if the Raj Dharma is still around in our hearts and mind, in the hearts of the Prime Minister, and I think he should come out and admit that there has been a mistake, and we shall try to correct it. And I'm sure that our party leaders will also happily welcome But this honesty is required first from the ruling party, both in the center as well as in the state.
Let me leave it there. Dr. Oikojam, your speech in Parliament was a very powerful one when you spoke at midnight, and I hope that the Prime Minister and the opposition can work together to resolve and bring an element of normalcy to Manipur. Thank you very much for joining me here on the show tonight. Questions tonight. Who will police the godmen of this country? What explains these godmen's hold on their followers? Does political patronage help these godmen thrive? Who will rein in the likes of Bhole Baba? Joining me now is Professor Shyam Manav. He's a social reformer, founder and national convener of the country's longest running anti-superstition movement. Made a big effort to bring in an anti-superstition and anti-black magic act in Maharashtra. Also joining me, Sanal Edamarku, President Rationalist International. Vikram Singh, former DGP Uttar Pradesh, is joining us. We also hope to be joined by Rahul Ishwar in a moment. I appreciate all my guests joining us. First to you, Sanal Edamarku, because you have been speaking out against these Babas and godmen, self-styled godmen for a long time. And yet these godmen seem to get bigger and bigger. Look at the crowds that had come, which eventually led to this tragic stampede. Clearly, people have a craze for godmen.
Well, the more people go to these kind of godmen, shows the importance of the work against their campaigns. A lot of people are vulnerable, and a lot of people are easily trapped in their campaigns. So therefore, what we need is a kind of new awareness where people can think for themselves, not to be taken as sheep folk. So that's why we generally try to tell people that we have to promote scientific attitude, and that has to be taken down to the villages, and that's to be taken at a very different level, right from education, from mass media.
Mm-hmm. But it doesn't seem to be working. You see, the worry is that all these godmen seem to get stronger by the moment. Professor Madhav, the fact is, श्याम माधव जी, आपने एंटी सुपरस्टिशन एक्ट लाया था महाराष्ट्र में, या उसके लिए पहल की थी, इसके बावजूद कुछ बदला नजर नहीं आता. ये गवर्नमेंट जो है और भी बड़े बन रहे हैं.
राजदीप जी नमस्कार. मैं हिंदी में बोलूंगा.
जरूर.
पहली बात तो यह है कि महाराष्ट्र में जो सुपरस्टिशन बिल आया है वो बहुत व्यापक है. उसमें बाबा अगर कोई चमत्कार करता है, चमत्कार का आभास निर्माण करता है और उसके जरिए कोई आर्थिक प्राप्ति करता है तो कानून के अंदर आता है और उसको 6 माह से लेकर तो 7 साल तक की सजा दी जा सकती है. इस ढंग का प्रावधान है. नॉन कॉग्निजिबल है, नॉन बेलेबल है. ये कानून बहुत कड़ा है, लेकिन इसको अमल में लाने के लिए जो एक इच्छा शक्ति चाहिए गवर्नमेंट की, उसके ऊपर ये काफी चीजें डिपेंड होती है. लेकिन मैं इसके मूल कारणों में जाऊंगा. केवल कानून आने से, या फिर हम जैसे कार्यकर्ता, मैं 42 सालों से मेरा संगठन काम कर रहा है महाराष्ट्र में और आसपास के प्रांतों में, तो केवल हमारे काम से ये बात होने वाली नहीं है. क्योंकि हजारों सालों से हम पर जो संस्कार हुए हैं उसके माध्यम से हमको बचपन से ये सिखाया जाता है कि इस भारत में जो भी पैदा हुआ है वो हर व्यक्ति भगवान बन सकता है. प्रार्थना के जरिए, मेडिटेशन के जरिए, पूजा अर्चा के जरिए, या वो खुद भगवान बनता है, या फिर उसमें ऐसी कोई सिद्धियां प्राप्त होती है भगवान बनने की प्रक्रिया में कि वो अलग अलग चीजें कर सकता है, या फिर कुछ लोगों को भगवान खुद भेजता है जिनको अपने दूत बनाकर भेजता है. ये जो संस्कार हम पर बचपन से हुए होते हैं उसके साथ में एक बात जुड़ी है कि जिसमें भी भगवान निहित है, जिसमें भगवान का संचार है, जिसके शरीर में भगवान आता है, या फिर जो भगवान का दूत है, या जो खुद भगवान है, ऐसा कोई भी व्यक्ति 3 प्रकार कर सकता है. वो किसी भी प्रकार का चमत्कार कर सकता है, नंबर 1. नंबर 2, उसे भूत भविष्य वर्तमान की जानकारी होती है. अपने सभी भक्तों का भूत भविष्य वर्तमान वो जानता है. और तीसरी बात, वो किसी भी प्रकार की बीमारियां ठीक कर सकता है. अभी ये जो स्टैम्पेड हुआ वो क्यों हुआ? सही माने में ये कहा गया था कि आप अगर मिट्टी उठाओगे, यानी ये जो भोले बाबा है जिस कार से जा रहे हैं उस कार के चक्कों के नीचे की जो मिट्टी होगी वो मिट्टी अगर आप उठाओगे और उसे आप अपने माथे पर लगाओगे, साथ में लेकर जाओगे, तो आपकी कोई भी समस्या हल होगी, कोई भी बीमारी ठीक होगी। ये बीमारियां कैसे ठीक होती है, उसमें सच्चाई है कि नहीं? वर्ल्ड हेल्थ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ने कहा है 1955 में कि साइंस इतना डेवलप होने के बावजूद 55% बीमारियां ये साइकोलॉजिकल क्षेत्र की है, जो साइकोसोमेटिक है, साइकोलॉजिकल है। शारीरिक बीमारियों के क्षेत्र में भी साइकोलॉजी बहुत अच्छे ढंग से काम करती है।
नहीं, पर ये सुपरस्टिशन है श्याम माधव जी, ये
रखने की बात सिखाई जाती है,
बट ये सब सुपरस्टिशन है। ये जो आप कह रहे हैं
जी,
आप होप यू आर नॉट, आप उसे प्रोत्साहन तो नहीं दे रहे ना कि मैं मिट्टी उठाऊं और मेरे बीमारी सॉल्व हो जाएगी। ये तो सुपरस्टिशन है।
नहीं, ये देखिए, इसमें दो बातें हैं। केवल सुपरस्टिशन के आधार पर ये सब चीजें खड़ी नहीं होगी ना। लोग विश्वास क्यों रखते हैं, ये रीजन हमको जानना पड़ेगा, उनको समझाना पड़ेगा। यानी मैं किस ढंग से समझाता हूं कि भाई अगर आपको इसका फायदा ही उठाना है, ये श्रद्धा प्रक्रिया का आपको फायदा उठाना है, आप एक बाबा पर श्रद्धा रखते हो, मानते हो कि उसकी मिट्टी अपने माथे पर लगाने से हमको ये फायदा मिलेगा। ये 55% जो बीमारियां है उसके लिए आप खुद मेडिटेशन कीजिए, खुद प्रार्थना कीजिए भगवान की, जिस भी भगवान को आप मानते हो। अगर भगवान को नहीं मानना है तो डायरेक्ट आप कोई हिप्नोसिस जैसी प्रक्रिया का उपयोग करो या फिर मेडिटेशन का उपयोग करो और उसके जरिए अपने आप को सजेशन दो, वही फायदे आपको मिलेंगे। ये केवल मैं कहता नहीं हूं, गए 40 सालों से मैं सीखा भी रहा हूं।
नहीं,
तो कहने का मतलब ऐसा है कि कोई भी अंधविश्वास को हम उखाड़ कर फेंकेंगे तो उसके पीछे का साइंटिफिक रीजन भी हमको लोगों को समझाना
सर,
है।
मैं आपकी बात,
क्यों आप विश्वास रखने के बाद में आपको फायदे मिलते हैं।
जी सर, आपकी बात आपने रखी है, लेकिन सनल एडमरकू, बिफोर आई कम टू विक्रम सिंह, रिस्पॉन्ड टू दैट। यू सी, here is Professor Manav Singh. You have to explain to people what superstition is all about. Otherwise, they are, this is not, you can't otherwise convince so many people, lakhs of followers, that all these godmen have, many of them in the criminal world at the moment. But the fact is they have these huge followings.
Rajdeep, you said, the large number of following of these people, that should make us feel that our work was not of meaningful. It's not correct. Imagine if our work was not there, if hundreds of people were not campaigning against these kind of superstitions, this would have been further more powerfully imposing upon people. So what is important is there should be at two levels we have to try. At one level, why people are taking this little piece of, dust to get ailments to go away. They don't have medical facilities at their disposal. The primary health centers, if it's available, they don't have to go for this kind of magical solutions. Most of the people go for magical solutions when medical facilities are, number one, not available. Number two, they are not aware of the medical facilities and its possibilities. So there should be a mass-scale public education. That's the only way to counter it. Not by praying, not by finding solutions, telling people that whatever faith you have, that's another thing, but don't go into these kind of things where you can have magical solutions right now by doing some small gimmicks.
Right. Vikram Singh, the police's role is very questionable. A large gathering of lakhs of people attends this function, more than a lakh according to some reports, and the police wasn't there, but the private army of Bhole Baba is there. Now these private armies, whether it is of Guru Ram Rahim, or of now of Bhole Baba, these are the private armies that have created a little parallel world of their own. So there was when the stampede broke out, the private army left people to their own devices. The police was absent, and even now no FIR is filed against Bhole Baba.
Rajdeep, this is totally unacceptable. It was a cumulative failure in which the police and the administration handed over the reins of the management to the Sevadars. The Sevadars can be a force multiplier, but they cannot be a law unto themselves, which they were allowed to be. In fact, the district administration ate out of their hands and went totally by what they said, 80,000. The crowd swelled to 2.5 lakhs. Then they were all the ones who were guiding the people and managing the crowd, which is totally unacceptable. The police and the administration cannot be silent spectators to the crowd and mob management. And then what happened is that they not only managed to allow this Baba to flee the scene. And the Baba very gleefully says that this stampede happened after he had left. As they say in the police, either you have presence of mind or display absence of body, which he is doing because he happens to be a former constable. Now, the district administration cannot wash their hands of the case. A cumulative failure. And I do hope that there are consequences for the district.
No, but why has he not been named in the FIR? Do you believe he shouldn't he be named in the FIR? How can he get away by saying, I was not there at the site? It is his organization. He is the driving force of these satsangs. The private army, as I call them, there are all his security personnel.
Obviously, they were not your Sevadar or my Sevadar. They were his Sevadars of the Baba. Therefore, Baba should have been accused number 1. The Sevadars number 2 and the organizers number 3. And if they have not been named, I would like to understand, and I would also recommend a reward of 5 lakhs on the Baba and his Sevadars and dedicated teams to pursue of the STF and the ATS to pursue the Baba and his Sevadars and to book him and put him behind bars in the next 24 hours. Use electronic surveillance, use whatever tools you have to, but you're not able to apprehend the Baba in the next 24 hours. Well, your credibility will take a toss and it will go to an all-time low.
Rahul Ishwar is joining us. Rahul Ishwar, you've seen these religious gurus. We've given a long list of them who today find themselves tangled with the law. They seem to believe that they are above the law. Asaram Bapu, when he was caught, for example, seemed to believe that this was all a conspiracy against him. You have these Babas who may be on the wrong side of the law but believe that they are above the law. And Bhole Baba also now is conveniently passing the buck.
Pratik sir, let us remember there are Babas and black sheeps. Of course, we are a land of great spiritual leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Swami Vivekananda who led us in the right path. But there are people like Asaram Bapu, there are people like Guru Ram Rahim, or there are people like Nityananda who have gone the wrong way. But I doubt whether this is an occasion to attack the whole idea of a spiritual guru or a god man. This is an occasion where we should talk about scientific crowd control, scientific crowd management techniques. As Saladamurg sir, who I respect really very much, he knows back in Shabarimala we had nearly 106 people being killed. Rajiv sir might remember that unfortunate incident. So the issue is of crowd control and crowd management. Yes, we as believers, if we want to have any kind of reform or adaptation, we are more than willing to listen to any person. But I doubt whether this is an ideological angle, but rather it is an issue of scientific crowd management. We should not use or misuse this occasion to attack faith, demean beliefs, or demean any kind of satsangs or social spiritual gatherings.
No, but you see, the problem is, I'm not saying you have to demean the satsang, each and every satsang, but there is a feeling that many of them, or at least a few of them, are virtually benefiting from the blind faith of their followers. You see, it's the blind faith, Sanal Edamarku, which is the troubling aspect of it. That therefore there is no space for rationality. You had a rationalist association. Is there space for rationality in a country where so many lakhs of people believe in blind faith?
That is precisely why it is important, Rajdeep. Because when there are more and more people gullible, when there are more and more people simply accepting any kind of claims of these people that things can be cured by taking water from a tap, or your ailments can go away by just taking the dust and put on your forehead. So when there are people like that, such an atmosphere was created over thousands of years. Therefore, this becomes more and more important to educate people to know for themselves and to question any kind of blunt claims like this.
Mm-hmm. You know, Professor Shyam Madhav, ये लॉ बताइए, कानून बताइए. आज अगर महाराष्ट्र में ये घटना होती तो उस कानून के मुताबिक क्या होता? क्या बाबा पर केस बन पाती है? कब वो केस बनती है? सुपरस्टिशन, ब्लैक मैजिक के खिलाफ कानून है. अब ये बाबा कहेगा नहीं, ये तो हमारे भक्त हैं. जी. हमने क्या इनके खिलाफ कार्रवाई होती अगर ये महाराष्ट्र में होता?
पहली बात, कानून में क्या है? कानून में यह है कि कोई भी अगर गॉडमैन बाबा अपने आप को चमत्कार से जोड़ता है, उसके पास में कोई सिद्धियां हैं, चमत्कार है, इसका दावा करता है, या फिर उसका प्रदर्शन करता है और उसके जरिए उसको आर्थिक प्राप्ति होती है, तो यह कानून उसको लागू होता है. यहां पर यह बात पूरी होती है क्योंकि बाबा ने खुद कहा है कि उसकी मिट्टी, यानी उसके कार की मिट्टी भी अगर आप माथे पर लगाओगे तो आपकी सभी समस्या सॉल्व होगी और आपके रोग बीमारियां भी ठीक होगी. तो इसका मतलब ये कानून डायरेक्टली लागू होता है। ये कानून इतना व्यापक है जिसका हर शब्द मैंने फाइनल किया है। इस कानून में यह भी है कि अप्रत्यक्ष रूप से इनडायरेक्टली भी अगर आप इस बात की ओर इशारा करते हो तो भी ये कानून लागू होता है। तो इसलिए कानून लागू होता है, इसके लिए अलग से कोई प्रूफ नहीं चाहिए, उसका केवल कथन और जो एक्शन हुई यानी जो भी परिणाम हुआ, ये दोनों चीजें साथ में आई, इसके बाद में उसके बाद में कानून लागू होता है। लेकिन कानून महाराष्ट्र में लागू होगा क्या, ये सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है।
नहीं तो
महाराष्ट्र की इसकी जो बॉडी है,
तो आप कह रहे हैं एनफोर्समेंट,
प्रचार प्रसार
नहीं आप कह रहे हैं एनफोर्समेंट सबसे बड़ा सवाल है। कानून है लेकिन उसको लागू कौन करेगा, इच्छा शक्ति है कि नहीं? You know, that's the problem, Vikram Singh. Who is which?
वही बात मैं कह रहा हूं।
You know, look at
obviously.
Look at the police in the past. They've often not been willing to look at the number of times Baba Ram Rahim is out on parole because he has got political clout. Many of these godmen have political benefactors.
No doubt, but the police should be the first responder. If not the police, the NGOs. If not the NGOs, any vibrant citizen can be
that
the
is all
complainant.
stating the first principles. So what is the fact in Baba Ram Rahim's case? He gets parole every time there is an election because he has a vote bank.
Agreed. But the fact of the matter is that Swami Nityanand, Ram Rahim, Asa Ram, Rampal have all been jailbirds or either in jail or have been jailbirds. Getting a parole, I agree with you that there was a special treatment meted out to Ram Rahim so that he got parole at will, especially on the eve or during the course of the elections. Perhaps what? So that they could garner votes on the strength of Ram Rahim because they are vote influencers. All of them without exceptions are vote influencers, and therefore the rule book for them is very different from the rule book that is you and I are subjected to. That is the tragedy of administration, unfortunately.
Rahul Ishwar, you mentioned that don't lump all these godmen in one basket, and to some extent that's true, but why call yourself a godman in the first place? I mean, the very fact that you call yourself a godman means that you believe you have some supernatural powers. You may be a faith healer, but why call yourself a godman?
I mean, Rasif sir, to be honest, nobody calls themselves a godman per se. But as we know, India is a land of Babas, India is a land of Fakirs, India is a land of Sadhus. 1893, one Sadhu, young 29-year-old Bengali, redefined India. A Sadhu from Sabarmati Ashram led our freedom struggle. So let us be reasonable. Here the critical question is, can believers and rationalists sit together and bring a consensus in forming something like an anti-superstition law? I as a believer, I'm strongly vouched for, believers community. I have fought for it. I have went to jail for belief. But at the same point of time, I am reasonable enough to see that there is sexual exploitation, economic exploitation that is happening. When I met Sallandapur sir in Finland, I personally requested, if there is a space where believers can sit together with the rationalist, with the scientific tempered, or with the, with the people who are reasonable, there can be a middle ground where we can demarcate sexual exploitation, economic exploitation, and we can bring right to information applicable for temples, masjids, or churches and ashrams across India, so that there can be financial transparency. We need such solid steps to cleanse what is, in the belief or the negative aspects of the belief, rather than attacking belief per se, rather than demonizing the entire belief system, rather than defaming the entire Babas and Sadhus. We have to pick out the right, we have to alienate the bad, and we need a filter for it. Okay. Law will serve as a filter, and that is the need.
Sanal Edamarku, is that at all possible? Rationalists and believers working together. You, if I'm not mistaken, have had to be in exile for several years because you've been targeted. You live now outside the country. You're not even able to be in this country. That is the reality of those who challenge these so-called godmen.
Yeah, ground reality. I mean, that's where we have to speak about. So the kind of problems, regarding my security that I have in India is not yet resolved. I don't know, which political system, which political party or which government would take care of such situations. Leaving that aside, on the note that Rahul has been speaking, Rahul was here in Finland. He was my guest for here. And we have been discussing about this possibility of religious reformists at one side and rationalists on the other side. Leaving aside the campaign of rationalists that all this spirituality is humbug, and the reformists on the other side, speaking for the religion on the other side, not contradicting on that side or not encroaching into that area. there should be a possibility that reformists in religion and critical thinkers join together and to address the issue of blind superstition at a very rampant level.
You believe it's not just about law, right? You believe it's not just about law, it's going to require civil society, correct?
Yeah, absolutely, Rajiv. It's not only the law. Law is at one side. It will help a lot. But on the other side, there should be public education. There should be civil society activists doing things very, very, very seriously into this matter and think of the possibilities and try to implement it without keeping anybody away, including, I would say, religious reformists should be taken into confidence in this process.
Okay, let's leave it there. I appreciate my guest joining us. Bhole Baba is the latest self-styled godman who finds himself now under the scanner. Someone who has lakhs of devotees cannot simply claim, therefore, to be above the law. He must face the law like any other citizen of this country. The stampede is tragic, unfortunate, and we hope that those responsible will be apprehended. Thanks to all my guests for joining me. Let's turn to our ground report today. It's that time of the year when torrential rainfall sadly brings many parts of the country to its knees. This year from Assam to Uttarakhand, heavy downpour is once again wreaking havoc, bringing daily life to a drastic standstill. Dozens of people have reportedly died in Assam, homes inundated, roads waterlogged, thousands being rendered helpless. Here's our report from across the country on the monsoon mayhem.
Swollen rivers, inundated roads, flooded streets. Monsoon is wreaking havoc in many parts of India. In Assam, floods have affected over 6 lakh people across 19 districts. At least 8 rivers are flowing above the danger mark in the state after days of torrential rainfall. The Brahmaputra is flowing much above danger mark, raising concerns among people. The Jorhat district administration has started relief distribution.
और कोलियाबर में बहुत गांव पानी है, पानी तलत हैं और गोरू सागुली और मानो सब रास्ता में है और सांकर घर बना के रखा है. अभी तो बहुत प्रॉब्लम हुआ. क्या आदमी कोई बाहर नहीं जाना है, अंदर से जाना है, क्यों पानी ज़्यादा हो जाएगा तो क्या करेगा.
बहुत प्रॉब्लम हुआ. अभी जितना लोग है वहीं पर सब लोग का जमीन का जो धान है वो भी सब भीज गया. घर में भी पानी उठ गया. अभी आदमी लोग नहीं है, सब पत्थर में जो कैंप है, कैंप बना के रखा है, ट्रिपल दे के आदमी लोग वहीं पर चला गया.
Monsoon has impacted Uttarakhand as well. In Haldwani, 14 roads, including 3 highways, were closed. Schools in Nainital are closed on Thursday following a red alert. Landslides were reported in Pithoragarh.
नॉर्थ इंडिया में बारिश धीरे धीरे बढ़ रही है, जिसके चलते आपका हरियाणा, वेस्ट उत्तर प्रदेश, उत्तराखंड यहाँ पर ऑरेंज अलर्ट रहेगा 4-5 तारीख को. हमारे उम्मीद है कि बारिश बढ़ेगी. अरुणाचल प्रदेश और असम, मेघालय वहाँ पर उस समय एक्सट्रीमली हेवी होने की भी पॉसिबिलिटी है. आज के लिए रेड अलर्ट है आपका गुजरात में, आपका सब हिमालयन वेस्ट बंगाल में.
Monsoon has swept most parts of India. The rains have already brought many cities to its knees. Bureau Report, India Today.
Let's turn from there to some good news. And our good news is actually about a devotee of Amarnath Baba who lost his limbs 20 years ago, but despite finding the Amarnath Yatra an arduous trek, returns to the shrine every year to pay his respects. Here's a story of how his devotion has trumped disability. A story of a Jaipur restaurant. Take a look.
Nearly 30,000 devotees have visited the Amarnath shrine since the yatra started on Saturday. Among them is Anand Singh from Jaipur. A devotee of Amarnath Baba, Anand lost his limbs in an accident over 20 years ago.
एक दुर्घटना में मेरे दोनों पैर चले गए थे 22 वर्ष पहले. 2002 में, और मैं 2010 से भोले बाबा की यात्रा पे निरंतर आ रहा हूँ। और 2 साल कोरोना गाइडलाइन में बंद था आपका अमरनाथ यात्रा, तब मैं नहीं आया था। उसके अलावा मैं निरंतर, ये मेरी 12वीं यात्रा है अमरनाथ।
Anand says he can't take the arduous trek anymore.
अभी मैं पैदल नहीं चल पाता हूँ, मैं पालकी का सहारा लेता हूँ और पालकी में बैठ के मैं जाता हूँ। पैदल इतनी दूर नहीं चला जाता है मेरे से।
Despite the struggle, every year he returns to pray to Barfani Baba.
उत्साह तो हर साल बढ़ता ही चला जा रहा है। 12 साल हो गए मुझे बाबा से मिलते मिलते। हर साल ऐसे लगता है कि बस कब अमरनाथ शुरू होगा और कब मैंने जाके दर्शन करने हैं। मेरे को मैं अपने आप को मतलब हूँ शारीरिक रूप से विकलांग, लेकिन दिल से मैं अपने आप को विकलांग नहीं मानता हूँ। मैं दिल से विकलांग बिल्कुल नहीं हूँ। और लोगों का कहने का क्या, कुछ तो लोग कहेंगे, लोगों का काम है कहना।
Anand Singh has not allowed his disability to come in the way of his spiritual quest. With Mir Farid, Bureau Report, India Today.
Our images of the day, one civic apathy once again, unfortunately, in Bihar. More images of how 2 bridges collapsed in Saran in a space of 24 hours. While no casualties or injuries reported, this is the seventh such bridge collapse in Bihar in just the last 15 days. Clearly, something is going horribly wrong at the moment in that state when it comes to building bridges.